Hello friends, this is RedUnicorn with a quick guide on Rimworld menus. For those of you who are interested in something specific, I'm going to leave timestamps. There are a lot of things you can click on and everything is some things are important, others are not so much. So I'm going to go over the most important features. First off, this is only for the vanilla Rimworld. Each mod adds more things to the menu and it's getting more complex. So this is basically for players who are just starting out and want to know, well, basically what button does what. So the first thing you have is those two buttons. This one is your home zone. Standard setting is that it's activated, which means that it expands your home zone wherever you do something. Like, for example, you make a stockpile zone. Yep, that's your home zone now. You want to harvest some plants over here, so you make a grow zone. Yep, that's your home zone now too. I personally always turn this off, because sometimes you, by accident, maybe claim a structure on the other end of the map, and then it's your home zone and people are running around in areas where they really shouldn't be. You can clear home zones here, but I always turn this off, and I'd rather manually tell them, like, yes, this is your home zone. This is where you're going to start out. This is especially important because your home zone is actually the area they're going to clean. And you do not want to run them all over the map, cleaning random areas, just because you have the automatic home zones on and somehow something got claimed as a home zone even though you don't use it and people don't work there. So I always turn this off. Second, this means that if something that is in your home zone gets destroyed, people will remember to rebuild it. This I always turn on because I think it's very, very important. Like, for example, if I claim this here, and then a wall gets destroyed, your people will automatically rebuild this. So this little hammer here, I always turn it on. That's very important. Next thing, you can see that they have already started carrying things inside, and the resources are listed on the left hand corner. I think the standard setting for this is that this is turned off, so you can see everything you have. If you get a lot more things, the list is going to get really long, so I always turn this on as well. You have menus for things like food, medicine, resources, and everything can be opened or hidden as needed. This one is also important if you're planning the layout of your base, because everything that's orange, like here it's on this map, it's quite a lot of things, does not allow stone walls. You can build wooden walls on bridges, but they get destroyed easier by raiders or fires. And so you want to make sure when you lay out your base that you build it in such a way that you're not disturbed by those areas. Next, if you want to check out where to go, for example, for planting, this one is really helpful because the dark green areas are the ones that are most fertile. So this is where you want to put your first plants, so they grow as quickly as possible and your colonists get food as quickly as possible. This shows you the roof area. The important thing to know about roofs is it has two colors. One, the light green, is the color of the roof you can build and remove by yourself. The dark green is, it says so in the lower bottom corner, is overhead mounted. This is roof you can't remove. This is also roofs drop pod raids, for example, can't get through. And this is also the area that attracts infestations. For those of you who have never dealt with an infestation before, this basically means that a bunch of insects appear and, well, start attacking you at random and digging through your base. So you might think insects, well, that's not that bad, but the insects are about the same size as your colonists, and they can do a lot of damage to you and your stuff. If you maybe do not want to play a mountain base and you have an area with not many hills, but a little, and if you do not want infestations, make sure that there's no dark green on your map anywhere, and you will never have infestations. If you mine something out, if you put like stone walls or wooden walls or whatever in there, there will not be an infestation. So those three, you always have them turned off, except if you need them. This one shows you which colonists you have. Obviously, the standard setting is not, you don't need to change it. The next one is the room stats. This one. If you toggle it on, I always have it off, except if I want to check something out. You can see that this is a dining room and it's slightly impressive. Its beauty is ugly. If I want to know why, I'll show you later. And it's nearly clean. At the moment, this is my corpse storage area. And the wall got broken, so I guess this is why the room's ugly. This, for example, is a bedroom. It's somewhat impressive, it's beautiful, and it's clean. If you want to know why a room has the stats, you need this button. Here it says that, well, all those clothings are -1, but the statue is 272, so who cares about all this stuff lying on the ground? The reason why this is ugly is because of all those corpses. You can see all the corpses are minus 51 beauty. So if you rebuild the wall here, this room should actually be okay. So here, if somebody's unhappy about their surroundings, you can actually see, like here, they need better floors and walls. That's why they might be unhappy. You can actually see what the problem is. This one I never use. Basically, it turns off. It doesn't show you. The zone is still there, but it doesn't show you where the zones is. I always forget where I put what, so I always leave it on. But that's your call. This is where you have your learning helper. Like, I obviously played the game a lot, but if you're new, you have a learning helper in the top right corner, and this is how you can turn it on and off. Now, next thing that for me is very important is the Colonist menus. You have a log which tells you basic stats about a colonist, like female or male, what weapon they have equipped. You can also see this here, if they're drafted and undrafted, and what they are doing right now. You can see their food restrictions, so what they are allowed to eat, and you can see which area they're allowed to be in. This one I never look at. It's just basically what they've been doing. This is the gear. You can see what they are wearing. You can also see which temperatures they are comfortable with. So the temperature is always, you can see the temperature here. Outdoor 27C. If I'm in a room, it will show that if I have my mouse pointing in a room, it will show the temperature of a room. So as you can see, Stella, if it gets any warmer, much warmer, she's going to have a problem because we're already at 27C. And she likes 30C. Social, that's sometimes very interesting if you want to check out if you should put people in a double bed because they're in a relationship. If you're really interested, you can have a look why they like somebody or dislike somebody as much. But basically, yeah. The more important thing here is the roles of people. If you play ideology, you can assign roles to people, but I think that's a whole other guide, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Most important tab, in my opinions, are the last three actually. The bio, like what are the traits of this person and what are they incapable of, and what they're good at, because this is what you want to build your work schedule around. This is what you want to look at when you tell people what their jobs are. For example, Stella for this colony will be the main fighter, but you don't have that many fights, so she will be doing mining, And because she has a passion here, she's not good at it yet, but she will be also planting and maybe animals, depending on how the other colonists are. The needs step, very important, because anybody who played Rimworld for only a little bit of time knows that if people are unhappy, they're going to have mental breaks, which can range from I'm hiding in my room because I'm sad to I'm just going to kill the next person I see. If somebody's really unhappy, you can see the happiness in this little bar here also. Like if it's getting really low, the little blue thing behind the pawn, if it's getting really low, you might want to check what the problem is. Sometimes it's stuff you can solve, like 8 without the table. Well, yes, build a table and a chair or a stool and you're getting there. Other times, like if they lose a relative or somebody dies or they break up out of a relationship, there's not much you can do about it. Okay, in the needs bar, you can see if they're hungry, if they're tired, the recreation. The recreation is also very important because there are different recreation types. If you ever get the colonist bored in the right-hand corner, it doesn't mean that they don't have anything to do. It means that you have not the right recreation types. Here it says, for example, that having 3 recreation types is recommended. This actually increases if their expectations rise. So if somebody's bored, you might check here if it says what kind of recreation they are missing. Comfort is like how comfortable are they now? You can increase that if they're, for example, researching a lot. You can build them an armchair and increase their comfort level also. Leads to people being happier. This means that they have a certain need to be outdoors. You have to keep that satisfied too. And then we have the mood bar. This is very important. It tells you when your people are getting close to a mental break. Like for Stella, for example, if you read the bottom here, it says extreme break threshold 5%, major break 20, and minor break 35. Bear in mind that extreme, major, and minor does not mean that the likelihood to have a mental break is higher or lower, but the mental break is going to get worse. Like if you have an extreme mental break, the mental break you're getting is far more likely I'm going to kill the next person I see. And if you have minor mental break, the break is going to be more like I'm going to hide in my room because I'm sad. This also differs. Some people have different thresholds, like Stella has 5, 20, and 35. But Loser here actually has 6.7, 27, and 47, which is much higher. It will need a lot more to actually break him. That's because he has the Too Smart trait, which increases his mental break threshold. Next thing is the health bar. If you move your cursor over to the consciousness, you know it tells you why they're not at 100%. It's because breathing is at 73. So you can check out breathing, and breathing is because they have a bite scar in the neck. So the neck seems to be a very important part of the body because it affects every of those other things. Here you can also queue up operations if you, I don't know, want to. Well, you can't replace a neck actually, but if the leg were the problem, you could get bionics later on. What most people don't know or don't use is this little button, the further information. This is your colonist stats. Some you don't really care about, like if the market's value at $600 or $1,000, who cares? Sometimes, especially if you want to play in a tribal wizard style or something, you need the meditation focus types, like where can people actually meditate. Meditation focus type is the one I look, the rest is I don't care. The next thing is move speed. Like don't get fooled by saying that, yeah, their move speed is at 90%. Okay. So, if you check wildlife, I don't know, let's pick a rhino, for example. And you can see here the move speed is 100%. Still, a human at 100% will never be able to outrun a rhino at 100%. That is this factor, move speed 4.14. The rhino, you can check it here as well, has a move speed of 5. It will always be faster, even if you have a human who has nothing wrong with them, like Jacqueline. They have 100% move speed. 100% move speed for a human in daylight is 4.6. the rhino will always be faster. Bear that in mind if you go hunting big animals. Don't look at the 100% stat, look at the move speed in this category. If you want to check if you can afford to keep certain animals and you want to see what they're eating, for example, like, can I keep a panther? What's a panther's diet? You can check it here. It says raw meat, corpses, animal products, meals, processed foods, and kibble. So you could actually keep the panther and feed him on simple meals if you have enough of those. So I think those are the most important stats. The other things I don't look at that much. It's the meditation focus type, depending on what kind of game you want to play, and the move speed. Because, well, I think anybody who played Rimworld before found him or herself wondering, can I outrun a panther, rhino, Rambo, monkey? Well, here you can check. So basically, out of all these tabs, this is the only thing that I'm actually find myself looking at, and the other things not important. Next, you have the architect menu. If you really want to know what all these things do, you should check out like a beginner's guide on how to get started in Rimworld, because that's not what we're doing here. The only thing I want to tell is, if you, like I do, even though I have quite some hours in Rimworld, forget in which menu you find what, you can actually put in trap. Now they have a search menu and you can see that yes, the traps are in the security tab. So that's the only thing important, I think, about this one. The work schedule, on the other hand, is very important for getting started, because this is what your people will do. You can be very efficient with this, or you can be very inefficient. I always turn manual priorities on. The work schedule, the way how that works is like, at the standard setting is everything is at 3, in which area they have a certain skill. So they do with 3, everything on 3. They do firefighting, then being a patient, bed rest, basic, and then go like that to the left. If you want them to research first, you have to crank research up 1 on 2. So it's like the lower the number, the higher the priority, and then from left to right. So that's the work tab. If you want to go into more detail about how to set up your work schedule, I think there are enough guides out there. If you're really interested, I can make a separate guide, but this would take quite some time, so I'm not going to go into any more depth in here. The schedule. Some people like to play with the schedule, some people do it in a very elaborate way, some people just leave it off as is. I personally, especially in the beginning, want them to work as much as they can. I always leave them 1 hour before they get up, and then I tell them to work the whole day. And in the end of the day, I tell them 2 hours of recreation, like fun time. Because the mood they have when they go to bed will stay this way until they wake up. For example, you can see here, her mood is at 52%. The arrow is a little bit higher. Like, this is the target mood. For example, if they are very hungry, their mood is getting really low, and then they eat something, so the arrow moves up here again. The bar will reach the arrow, but it's going to take a little time. So when they go to bed and their arrow is here, but their mood is still here, they will go to bed with a minor break risk, even though they shouldn't be. That is why I always put the recreation in the end, to make them happy again before they go to bed. Because they just might have a mental break during the night otherwise. You can also assign them areas, which I always do here. You can manage the areas here. You can also do this with the zones, manage areas. That's the same menu. Like if you want, for example, to have a safe zone that's only inside, you can rename it, close it. The thing is, if you want to actually assign the zone, you have to go here, expand allowed area, and tell them, yeah, the safe zone is always here. I always assign doors in the safe zone. You have to be a bit careful about that, because, well, sometimes they walk into it, but most of the times they don't. But if somebody's pounding on your door wanting to get in, and you want your person to repair the doors so they can't get in, They won't repair it if it's not in the home, if it's not in the zone they are assigned to. So this is the schedule tab. The assign tab, most people underestimate it. I think it's very important. You can assign their behavior when they're under attack. So normally I always do the attack, like if something's dangerous, don't run away, because that way you only get hit in your back until you fall down, but attack. But this one actually can't attack because they're, well, a pacifist. Medicine, especially in the beginning, I always put it on herbal medicine. You won't have the better medicine types anyways, and I find myself using herbal medicine for injuries and the better medicine types only for sicknesses or infections or stuff like that. Manage outfits. There are a lot of outfits pre-selected. I never use any of those. Just, well, if I play with slavery, I might use the slave's outfit, but that's about it. The other ones I always delete. In the beginning, I usually find myself just setting the anything outfit up to 51 hit points. Reason 51% hit points. Reason for that is that they get a, if they have clothing that has 50 or below, they get a negative mood debuff and are getting more unhappy. So that is the only thing I do in the beginning. They can wear whatever. If your game is a little further along, you might want to have different outfits for different people. I always use 2 outfits, one for ranged fighters and one for close combat people. The reason I use different outfits later in the game is because if you have some designated melee fighters, you might want to give them better armor than the ranged fighters. And if you have them, also shield belts. People will automatically put on any of those utility things, but the thing you want your melee fighters to wear are the shield belts, because that way they cannot be shot, neither by attackers nor by your own people, because friendly fire is a real thing in Rimworld. If it gets too much hits, it will run out, but if you start a fight, the shield belt is really a huge help. Same for the ranged fighters. I do not want them to wear shield belts, because if you have a shield belt, you can't shoot. But people don't... Well, sometimes pawns are stupid. So if you have somebody with a ranged weapon and there's a shield belt lying around, they will pick it up and put it on. So I always turn this off. The utility, sometimes I actually assign manually. You can see this in the forced apparel. If you choose a person and you right click on something, you can tell them to equip this, please. It shows up under the gear, and it also shows up here because you force them to wear this. If you have the leader or moral guide, and if they have required outfits for their role, I make separate outfits for them. Same with lavish foods. In the beginning, I always turn off raw food, because I don't want them to eat raw meat or raw berries or anything. That just leads to food poisoning, so no, don't do that. The rest and corpses. No, don't eat corpses. The rest I just leave as it is. Later you can have different food restrictions depending on your people's diets. You can have vegetarian food, you can have food with human meat for those of them who are cannibals, and all stuff like that. But in the beginning, this is the setting I'm doing to prevent mental breaks. Drug schedules. Well, for me this is very important, because drugs are a way to... Well, earlier in this video I said that if they're in a bad mood because their aunt died or something and you can't do anything about it, well, that's not strictly true. You can do a little thing about it. You can take drugs. But on the other hand, you do not want your people to get addicted. So I always take this. I turn everything off. The only thing I want to use is beer, ambrosia, and psychiatry. Everything else has an addiction danger, no matter which frequency it takes. You take it, except for the smoke leaf joints, but those make your people work slower, so, well, I just don't use it. What you want to do is do beer. You can have a beer every day without getting addicted, but I crank it down. I don't want them to actually waste our beers. I want them to use this like with the mood is below 40%. So if you want to assign the mental break threshold, you could actually look at your people and see like 35, they have a minor break risk. So you tell them that if they're at 40, grab a beer, make you happier. And then ambrosia, you have to crank that up to every 2 days, otherwise they might get addicted. And then you tell them like if they're at 35, which is actually minor break threshold for most colonists normally, you can take ambrosia, and same for psych-IT. I always set this up in the beginning of the game because I know myself and I tend to forget if I'm doing it later. So this is the Assign tab. In the Animals tab, you can see all the animals you own. You can see if they are assigned to a certain area. You can make new areas for certain animals. As you can see, I was going with a polar bear army in this playthrough, which was actually quite fun. And you can see also here, if you click this button, it's easier to sort, that there are some animals like donkeys who need a pen. You can see which gender they are, how many you have, what they can do. For example, you can see that they are all trained in hauling, and that some animals like the foxes, they cannot be trained in hauling. That's just something they can't do. Same with the donkeys. They have different roles. So this is the training tab. This means that they are pregnant. If you have your cursor above it, you can see how long their pregnancy will still last. So this one's been pregnant for 1 day, and in 9 days it will give birth. You can see the master. Bear that in mind, because if you have, for example, Hawkins assigned to them, the real master, which is Raven, will be unhappy about it. So you can actually assign a master to an animal even if they are not assigned to handling. The other handlers will still train those animals. You can tell your colonists to slaughter animals, and you can assign the medicine you want to use. The thing they added is the manage auto slaughter, which I actually find really useful. For example, here I told them that you can have an infinite amount of polar bears. For the Labradors, I don't want too many of those. Those are more indoor hauling animals, and they do generate filth, so I tell them that I do not want any female Labradors, because this means that they will not breed. I only allow male Labradors in my colony. The standard for slaughtering pregnant animals is off. You can also tell them that yes, they are allowed to slaughter pregnant animals. They will start slaughtering the oldest and then move forward from that. You can also allow them to slaughter bonded animals. I would highly recommend you don't do that. If you have a bonded animal you really don't want, like, I don't know, you find really useful, like your colony gets started with a guinea pig or something, you just gotta deal with that, because your colony is going to be really unhappy if you kill it. I think the least mood debuff you get is if you form a caravan and then disband that animal from a caravan, then you just get the caravan loss debuff, but still. So that was the animals tab. The wildlife tab. You can see which animals are on the map, and if you go here you can also see, like, you should probably not go hunting a cassowary, because if you're not quick enough they will attack you. Same as rhinos, they attack in 50% of the times they get hit. So if you want to check what animals you can safely hunt or tame, go in here and check it out, and then tell your colonists to hunt or tame animals depending on what you want. If you want to know if it's worth hunting an animal, you need to get on the info bar again, and you can find the meat amount. That's the second up here. And you can see that while an alpaca gives 112 meat, a rhino gives, well, nearly 3 times that much meat. So if you have good fighters, good hunters, crack shots, go ahead and hunt yourself some rhinos. It also says that, for example, chinchillas, probably not worth it. And you have the research tab, which basically tells your colonists which research is already done, that's the green stuff, and which is available to you. This is the highlighted stuff, and which is not available to you because it is missing some prerequisites, which is the grayed out things. This is all I'm going to say about the research tab, because otherwise this is going to just blow this out of proportions. Now we have the quests tab. These are all your quests that you can currently accept, or where you miss some things until you can accept them. Those are the quests you currently have. Those are quests we already did. The red ones are the ones we failed. The yellow ones are the ones we didn't do, and the green ones are the ones we actually did. What most people don't know is that here you have this button which says reward preferences. If you have quests, you can get certain rewards from factions. If you get quests from factions, for example, security from nobles. This is a quest from the Dominion, from the Empire, and you can see that there's no goodwill here and no honor. You can set the reward preference in this menu. You can tell them that if you, for example, I want to make friends with the Born Pact, so I will actually accept goodwill from them, and I don't want to bother with anybody else, so I can turn the goodwill off, and you get more material offers, better things. And for example, this is important if you do not plan to be friends with the Dominion, with the Empire. You can actually turn honor off and goodwill off, so you get better stuff from them. So I think this is a very important menu too. You can go to the world map and see where you actually are, if you have any trading partners close by. This is all this button does. The history, you can put it to a whole different time frames, and the red points up here means the last raid or negative thing that happened to your colony. The white one's positive, only marriages. It tells you how wealthy you are. The wealthier you are, the higher your rates are gonna be. I don't actually look at this very much. More important, the messages. If you get a new message here and you click it off by accident, or you want to revisit what it said, you can reread it in this menu all the time. Also, if something pops up in the top left corner, you can turn on show messages, and it says that it has the smaller messages in the statistics. Well, the only thing that's important here, and the only reason it is important, might be the colony wealth. And this is only important because the higher the wealth, the bigger rates you're gonna get. But if you're playing for the Archinexus ending, this suddenly takes a whole new meaning, because here a certain wealth has to be reached for the next step. In the factions bar, you can see which factions there are in your game, and if they are neutral or hostile or allied with you. You can ally with factions if you get the goodwill above 80. Here it says where the natural goodwill of a faction is, but I find myself not really looking at this. The only thing I'm looking is like -80, and this has no minuses, because those are permanently hostile. I don't need to bother doing anything with those. I can never make friends with them. So this is the only thing I check, like which factions can I actually make friends with, and do I want to. Well, this is it for my guide to vanilla menus. I hope I could help some of you. I hope you learned something new. If you like what you saw, I would be happy about a thumbs up or a comment down below. And if you want to watch more of my Rimworld content, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye!